Let's go through the steps of creating a checklist. So as you're logged into your administrator dashboard, you want to click on the settings button in the top right hand corner. Then in a new tab or window, the settings page will open where you can access all of the various sections within your settings. We are going to click on Add Edit Checklists because, well, we're going to make a checklist. That will open a pop-up window, and as always, do be sure that you have pop-ups enabled in the browser that you're working in so that the site will function properly for you. When you click on Checklist from your settings page, the pop-up you'll see will show you the existing checklists that you've already set up. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 checklists in there. Now I can edit or add to those checklists simply by clicking on the arrow to the right of it. So I'm going to click on the documentation checklist, and every checklist must have at least one section. I see that my documentation checklist has 2 sections, and then within each of the sections is where we actually find the tasks. And I can see that in section 1 of my documentation checklist, I have 3 tasks. I can certainly add new tasks, but what I'm going to do is actually go all the way back here, and let's create a new checklist from scratch together. So to create a checklist, I'm going to go down here to the text box and title my checklist. So I'm going to say, let's call this checklist documentation 2, and I'm going to click on add new checklist, and then you can see I've created that main checklist. Now the next thing I need to do is add sections into my checklist, so I'm going to click on the arrows directly to the right of it. Now I can add as many sections as I like, but I need to add at least one section. So I'm going to separate this checklist out by days. So we'll call this day 1 section, no pun intended, and we'll call that day 2, and let's say there's 3 days to this particular checklist. Now what I'm going to do is go into each of the sections and start adding tasks. To do so, simply to the right of the section, I click on Edit Tasks from this section, and I can see that so far there are no tasks listed, obviously, because I've just created this particular checklist. Now the task, that is actually the specific task, if you will, that trainers and supervisors are teaching the new employee, and that needs to be checked off that they've successfully done this. So the checklist and the sections are just kind of ways to better organize the tasks into kind of some nice, neat buckets. So let's just start making some tasks. So I'm just going to kind of make some things up for the sake of demonstration. So day 1, I'm going to have a documentation task of daily activities. So I'm going to type in the name of the task here. Now the next thing I need to do is select the kind of category that this task best fits into. So direct client care, interpersonal or relational, execution or following directions, technical knowledge or aptitude, or mechanical or physical. These categories really dictate the type of tip that will be provided to the person who's teaching this task to the employee. It's really how the system knows what kind of tip to provide based on the kind of task that it is. So we're going to say that daily activity documentation is just an execution or following direction test. And then the second thing we need to clarify is if we want for this task to have an RN sign off on it for documentation and regulation purposes. That is not required. That's not required for this task, so I'm going to click Not Required and add the task, and then we'll see that it's added up into my list. So let's add another one. Again, I'm just kind of putting things in here. Let's require an RN signature to pass this task and add the task. then you'll see that next to that task is this little picture of the RN, so that when I have my task list open, that symbol will signify that this is a task that will require an e-signature from an RN. Let's just add a couple more tasks in here, and then just one more. Okay, and I'm going to say that we're done building this piece of the list. So I've put in my tasks for my day one section. I could certainly continue to edit tasks and enter tasks in for the other sections, and I can also return to do that at a later time just by going to my main checklist page, clicking on the specific checklists, and editing tasks as I go. And that's all there is to creating and editing checklists.